guys, this is Robert166 and today's video is about an older plane of mine, my FMS 1400mm Supermarine Spitfire. I bought this plane in summer 2011 and was pretty happy with it. I even had plans to mod it, but then in mid 2012 I had a major crash with it and it was a lovely day for flying. I was about 100 meters away and about 30 meters high when suddenly my Spectrum transmitter decided to take a coffee break or something. My Spitfire in totally English fashion was not concerned. She did a very elegant roll over her right wing, in a way only a Spitfire can do it. Then went into a steep dive and crashed full speed and right into the ground. The fuselage basically exploded on impact. So I bought a new one to rebuild the plane, but I was so angry about the crash that I stuffed the parts into the farthest corner of my shop. And there they stayed, till I pulled them out of the corner about 2 weeks ago. Or should I say 7 years and 2 weeks ago? I don't know. Anyway, I took the parts and spread them all over my workbench to assess the damage. The only parts I saved from the original plane were the wings, the canopy, the elevator and a few parts of the electronics, including the motor. Funny thing, it survived without even a dent. I decided to start with the wings, mostly because if I missed something while I checked them the first time, this project would basically end before it really began. And while I had this plane on the bench already, I decided to remove all the foam hinges and replace them with glass fiber hinges. After that, I removed the decals and used filler on all the dings and danks the plane got during its crash. Then I repaired the wheel houses for the landing gear and removed the gun ports from the wing. Since a new paint job was necessary anyway, I wanted to use this opportunity to change the color scheme of this plane. And of course I also found the time to install position, tail and landing lights on this bird. Of course all these tiny repairs took me a long time. I checked the wiring and installed new servos and then started to think about the power system. It was not that hard to find a suitable ESC for the plane, which I installed with the old motor. The first test run of the old motor revealed that it worked perfectly. The problem came actually when I tried to install the new cowl. I found out that most of the parts, at least, that I ordered right after the crash were not from the version 1. They were from the version 2 and even they looked more or less the same, they are not. The screw holes didn't align properly and the fit of the new cowl on the fuselage was also far from perfect. The same problem appeared when I tried to install the new base plate and spinner for this plane. The base plate of the new prop actually rubbed against the cowl I installed a short while ago. So the measurements were wrong at least at some point. I had to adjust the motor mount, but that was easily done with a few washers. But I also had to mill a few millimeters of the propeller base plate to get enough clearance between it and the cowl. All in all, not super difficult, but time consuming. But in the end I was pretty happy with it. I actually like the new propeller from FMS, the one with the 3 single blades. Looks much more like the real thing. But of course there's always bad and good too. It is much harder to balance than the old one. And while I was looking at the electronics bay, thinking about servos and such, I noticed something I didn't even like when the plane was brand new. The canopy lock. Or let's say the lack of it. So I installed one. Not that there is necessarily something wrong with magnets, but I prefer the affirming click of a real lock. After that I installed two 12-gram servos for the elevator and the rudder, and I also soldered in the new UBC. A Hobby King 5.5 volt 5 amps unit that I used in several of my other models over the last few years. Not really high tech, but inexpensive and reliable as far as I can tell. After that, I printed a small hatch for the camera I want to install. And the boys and girls among you who know their Spitfires probably already guessed what I was doing with mine when I was talking about removing all the gun ports. So the idea was to turn my Spitfire into one of the Royal Air Force reconnaissance wing. The idea was to install a little video camera, but mine is still in the mail, so this has to wait at least a little bit. So I already finished the basics. After that I put a coat of white primer onto the plane, and for better visibility I put some invasion stripes on it. At that point I noticed that there was still the original landing gear in it, with no spring or no suspension, just a few softer tires. Not ideal in my opinion. So I started looking for some nice oleo legs. My search for new suspension legs for my Spitfire mod ended about 15 minutes later on the Hobby King site. The new struts were not an exact match, but they fit pretty good, I think. They had slightly smaller tires than the original Spitfire legs, but with a rake that far forward as on my Spitfire, this is not a problem. The only thing left to do then was to wait for good weather, so I could begin the testing phase. Measuring the power consumption of the drive system, followed by a taxing test, of course. The taxing test is always an important part of my testing phase. And as you will see in a minute, the Spitfire is passing us with flying colors. Here I'm taxiing with fully pulled elevator. But since this plane showed absolutely no tendency to nose over,
Ja, besser auf
I
jeden Fall,
let
würde ich
go of
sagen.
the elevator and started to taxi without it. The result was the same. So everything good here. The Spit was tracking pretty straight, and even the steering felt okay. Oh, and there's no gyro in the plane, at least not yet. But I'm a big fan of the new gyro systems. They usually make a good flying plane fly even better. So, maybe I will put one in the future. But of course, first I have to remaiden her 7 years after her big crash. No pressure, right? Sometimes I'm simply a little bit overly nervous before a maiden flight. But I'm also pretty sure most of you guys know what I mean. Lucky for me, the FMS Spitfire knows how to fly. It is simply a great flying plane. Not my best landing, but she is on the ground and she is still in one piece. So I take it. So this is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed my rebuild, repaint, remaiden video of my FMS Spitfire. And of course I will let you know how things turned out for my Spitfire after I finished the paint job. Anyway, have fun at the flying field guys. Warbird Fan 66 out.